Hi, how you doing, and welcome back to the video on the channel. What we have for you today is our wildcard video going into the international break and before game week 4. Now, I think if you are wildcarding and you're dead set on wildcarding in the international break, I would definitely do it earlier rather than later, because then you can get in the players you want and you kind of don't risk missing out on any players because of price rises and price drops from the players you already have. I think if you're using just transfers, I'd be tempted to wait a bit later in the international break, just in case any injuries or anything come up. If you are new to the channel, please do like and subscribe. The support has been awesome. We actually had our most viewed video this last week, and the comments have been really positive as well, and it's been great if you're asking questions just to chat FPL. So we are closing in on 200 subscribers, so if you can help with that, that will be really appreciated. Let's check out the team. So the team for this game week and for future game weeks, if you're wildcarding, we're going to start with Flecken and Valdemarson in goal from Brentford. Now, most goalkeepers in reality are going to get you 3 or 4 points per week on average. You know, you could pay premium for Raya. I think if you had the money, I probably would. But with Spurs, Man City, Newcastle and Liverpool in the next 7 for Arsenal, it depends whether you want to take the tough with the easier fixtures, but he is the best option for clean sheets. I think for someone like Flecken, he actually has the most saves out of all the goalkeepers so far. So he is getting those save points, even though he's not getting those clean sheet points. And I do think that whilst he's got Man City next, which isn't ideal at all, he does have West Ham, Wolves, Ipswich, Fulham and Bournemouth in the next 8. So he is a good option to have, even though Brentford aren't keeping the clean sheets, the save points are there. Now into the defence, and I've gone with 2 premiums here in Trent and Saliba. I think if you're not going to get Raya in goal, I do feel like you need an Arsenal defender in your squad just for the consistent clean sheets that you're going to get from them. Trent has also been really unlucky with attacking returns so far this season. We are recording this video in the middle of the Liverpool Man United game, and I do believe he's had a goal disallowed, so he is getting in those positions, and he has had some, I think he had an assist ruled out as well in one of the earlier game weeks. He's the premium defender there. I think if you don't want to spend the money on him, I think there's obviously other Liverpool defenders you could get in, like Robertson would be a great option for $1 million cheaper, but with the defenders, the price differences in the players are a lot smaller than midfielders and strikers, and you can get those premium defenders in your squad a lot easier than you can get in, those premium midfielders across the board. So I do think Trent is a really good option. I always think, compare someone like Trent to a 7 million midfielder, say, or a 7 million striker, and you look at them side by side and you think, well, he can score points defensively and attacking wise. He looks like a great option in that comparison. I think you need to look at players like that in that light. Now, we do have a double Ipswich defence. One of them is my 4 million defender. Now, if you watch my videos consistently, you'll know that I don't put a lot of money on the bench, and this team's no different. For me, Greaves, he plays 90 minutes. He's played 90 minutes all 3 games so far, and I think for your final player on your bench, I think that's a great player to have, because you're not going to need them very often, and if you do need them in your team, you know that they're going to get you 1 or 2 points minimum, and Ipswich could still keep clean sheets. They are a Premier League team. They could keep clean sheets. Now, I do think, in fact, sort of those players, whilst Ipswich are not a great team overall, you have to sort of take those players in your squad to enable you to get in more consistent players elsewhere. And at the moment, we are sort of chasing the points a little bit. Sort of, if you watch other people's videos at the moment, everyone's sort of talking about which players are getting in the comment sections and everything. And you can't just chase those points consistently. You can't make those transfers every week. You might end up having injuries. You might end up having to stick with certain players that you're not too keen on for mid to long term. So I think these players are absolutely fine. Fulham and Ipswich actually do rotate quite well. The fixture line for those teams combined, you would have a player who is playing West Ham, Southampton, Forest, West Ham again, Everton, Brentford and Leicester in the next 7 game weeks. So I think that's a really good run of fixtures between Robinson and Leif Davis as your third defender. Onto the midfield, and I'm pretty happy with it here. Now, we have got players like Saka who have gone up and Smith Rowe who've gone up in price, but it also includes Eze in the team. Now, he did actually get his goal today, and he's been really unlucky so far this season. Has Eze? He's had goals disallowed, he's hit the woodwork a couple of times, and he does now have Leicester, Everton, Forest and Wolves in the next 7. Now, he is someone who is the main guy in his team, and he will be playing all the time. I think, he could easily have had 3 attacking returns so far this season, and it's amazing that he's dropped down in price. I think he's a good example of what we were just talking about. People expecting Eze to score, 3 goals in the first 2 game weeks. He's not done that, so they move off him onto someone else who's now probably not scoring them points as well. I think there'll be a few people who are regretting selling Eze at this point. Smith Rowe, I think, is a good option. We've always said whether he can last the season, we're not sure about, but really ride that wave until he gets injured, and then you have to transfer him out. We're always thinking what ifs, but what if he doesn't get injured? What if he continues to play? And at 5.6 million, I think he's a good price point. Saka is Mr. Consistent. Now, you could do Trent to Robertson and get Palmer in instead of Saka. That's completely up to you. There are different options, and because he's quite a premium midfielder, you can also drop down to one of the, maybe another 7.5 million midfielders instead, that you can use that money to invest in elsewhere, maybe to upgrade another defender. If you want a bit more of a stronger bench, you could do that. I've also gone with Diaz from Liverpool. Now, at the moment, he's scored 2 goals for Liverpool today, and he's actually got 4 attacking returns so far. Forest, Bournemouth, Wolves and Palace in the next 4 look pretty good. Now, he will probably get subbed off every game, but so will Jota, and everybody is so high on someone like Jota. I think really you've just got to get a Liverpool player in and just accept that sometimes they're going to return and sometimes the teammate's going to return and they won't. 7.5 million is not an issue for me. I think that's a really good price. But with Liverpool's fixtures, I do think you need an attacking player in your squad. And for me, he is the best value option. He is the cheapest one of the ones who started so far. And I think he also offers quite a good cover for someone like Salah because he's not in this team. So up front, I've gone with Isak, Solanke and Haaland. And I know that Solanke's injured at the moment, but it goes to what we said before in terms of chasing the points and chasing the next fixture, and somebody scored well and everyone rushes to get them in for the next week and then they blank. You've got to try and look at the next few fixtures as a sort of mini season because you're not going to get a wild card every game week. This has to last you, half a season really. And yeah, you can make transfers, but your core players are probably going to stay the same. So I think getting Solanke in now bodes quite well for the future. If he hadn't been injured, everyone at the start of the season was saying Solanke, great value, fantastic. And now a lot of people have sold him. If you're wildcarding him in now, you'll get ahead of the curve for when he comes back because his injury shouldn't be that serious. Now, if you don't want Solanke, there's a load of great options you can have below that price point. And likewise, if you were to sell someone like Trent to Robertson, you could spend $1 million on Solanke as well to get someone else in who's even more expensive. But for me, if you don't want Solanke, I would go with Visser from Brentford. I think he's a great option. I also think if you've got a bit extra cash, Mbeumo is brilliant. I think they've got Man City in the next fixture, and they've got another tough fixture after that. But since those fixtures have been put away after that point, they are brilliant. And Mbeumo's actually got 23 attacking returns in 20 starts without Tony, which says it all really. He's now going to be the main guy. Isak has scored this weekend as well. A lot of people again were selling him. We said it before, just because he's not scored in his first 2 games, he's still probably going to get 20 goals this season. If anything, he's going to do it in less games than he was at the start of the season now. So I think it makes him an even better option than he was before. Newcastle, I do believe, will come good without European football. Everyone else, you kind of got to worry about rotation risk with Europe. And Haaland speaks for himself. I kind of think you've got to have Haaland in your team now. I think, it's too risky not to. He's nailed on. Man City didn't really sign another attacking player who's going to take his minutes. And bar any injury, you've got to say he's kind of worth the price, And if he's not going to score a hat-trick every week, but I could see him scoring every week. There's not really a defence there where I think he's going to blank against. So when we put this team into Fantasy Football Hub, shout out to them, it did only come up with an 88% rating. And I do believe the reason for that is that a lot of the players in this team have tough fixtures in this next game week. We've got Solanke, who's also not going to play. Maybe in the next game week as well, you might need to put Robinson in there for that. We wait to be seen how the international break goes. But you've got, Brentford playing Man City. It's not ideal. And, a lot of these players, it remains to be seen how they're going to turn out after the international break. But I think the immediate fixtures have sort of, reduced the rating a little bit there. But what you do have to remember is that we're looking for the next 10 to 15 game weeks. The value is 100.3 million. Now, you will probably have some of these players in your team already. If you've got Haaland in your team, you got him at 15 mil. Well, this team is only going to cost you 100.2 million. And same if you got Smith Rowe. So there is ways of, saving value like that. But there is also ways, like we talked about, you can do Trent to Robertson. And, there are other ways you can save money on players. And we've discussed other options as well. So the strengths are it covers Salah. Trent and Diaz are a brilliant combination that will cover Salah's points on the most part. And we touched on it a little bit. We said what we mean by main players is a lot of these players are going to start for your teams. They are main players in their squads. You've got Trent, Saliba, Saka, even Smith Rowe, Eze, Diaz. They're all going to start. All the strikers are going to start when fit. You're not going to have any rotation risk unless there's some injuries, which is really good because you don't want to use a lot of your bench all the time. And you also need to be able to rely on your players. If they're not starting, they're not going to score you points. So weaknesses are, we talked about it, there's tough next fixtures. And we do have some mid-price players. What we mean by mid-price is Diaz, Eze, Smith Rowe, and how often can you rely on someone like Smith Rowe to get you points? Are you willing to take the risk and start him every week? Because I think for a 5.5, 5.6 million player, it is totally reasonable to expect an attacking return every 3 games. I think that's a good return for someone of that price. So it's also about, checking your expectations and not putting pressure on saying like, we need Smith Rowe to get me points, because your strikers will score you points. Trent's in there to score you points. Saka's quite consistent, and Diaz has that explosive potential. So I'll be interested to hear what you think about this team. I know it's not the highest rated team we've had, but I do think if you look at the fixtures for them in the mid to long term, I do think it could pay off really well. And, we talked about different options that you could get instead of the players on this team. But if you think this team is missing someone, or you want to sort of put in your wildcard team in the comments and who you're thinking of getting in, just do so and I'll get back to you. And it's great to have those discussions as well. Please do like and subscribe. The support, like we said at the start, is awesome and it is really appreciated. We're a small channel trying to grow. Hope you had a good game week and I will see you in the next one.